Good morning, it's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony up on the hill. It is Sunday, September 28th, believe it or not, and we're going to do the astrology for the week of September 28th, right on through Saturday, October 4th. This week is a little quiet. Okay, we're in a little quiet null zone right now. There's no aspects really happening until later this week. We're going to get to that, but I want to establish the greater framework, the bigger picture of which, through which today's energy is a part of. Okay, so just to get us oriented, we were through this past eclipse season. So we went through the lunar eclipse in Pisces in early September. We went through the solar eclipse in 29 degrees Virgo here just last week. So we're on the other side of this eclipse season. Okay, so like I mentioned before, this is the flushing out period. This period from this eclipse season until the next one is a flushing out. We're getting rid of these old containers, these old ways of being, old habits, okay? And we're really cleansing and clearing ourselves for what's coming, okay? And because what's coming in conjunction with the next eclipse season, which will start in February, on February 17th, there'll be a solar eclipse in Aquarius, which is, has lots of repercussions with regards to the Aquarian awakening that's happening with Pluto and Aquarius, etc. Okay, 3 days after that, on February 20th, is the big event, which is Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, which I've talked about many times, which I go over in my webinar on my YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. Okay, but that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, they happen like once every 37 years, and they're extremely significant. Okay, can't understate that enough. And this one starting at 0 degrees Aries, which is the start of the zodiac, makes it extra significant. And just to give you a sense of the significance of these new phases, because that's really what we're opening up. We're flushing ourselves up for this new beginning that happens in early 2026. Okay, just going back a few Saturn Neptune conjunctions ago, we can go back a little over 100 years, 1917 or so. This was a Saturn Neptune conjunction in Leo. This was the start of the communist revolutions. Literally started in Russia. Okay. And then we saw it move throughout Europe and other parts of the world to the point where we got to 1949, and now China established communism. Okay, and that was the end of that Saturn-Neptune cycle. So it started in 1917, ended in 1952. Okay, so the theme of that one was kind of like, welcome the new boss, same as the old boss, right? This idea that we're revolutionizing how power is structured, only to replace it with something that's probably even worse, right? And that's really the theme of World War II, was trying to fight that, okay, with an extreme on the other end, right, which was also unnecessary. And so there was this idea of being in this extreme energy. Now it's Saturn, Neptune, and Leo, so it makes sense. Okay, so that's a lot of power and might and strength, and and so that's how that was dealt with. 1952, when we had Saturn, Neptune conjunction in Libra, this has to do with sides now. Okay, so which side are you on? This is literally the start of the Cold War era. The Iron Curtain, when the Berlin Wall came up, it was the symbol of the Cold War, the Iron Curtain, right? That was dividing the east and the west of Berlin, Germany, literally between communism and capitalism, okay? So it was really exemplifying that Saturn, Neptune, and Libra. Take a side, pick a side, which side are you on? Okay, that went on from 1952 to 1989, okay? And during that whole period, the whole theme was now, there was threats from China entering North Vietnam, North Korea. So we had the Korean War in the 50s, Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s, on and on. Everything had to do with this communism, capitalism battle, right? So that was the theme. The social evolution was at that level during that time, 1952 to 1989. Now we are finishing up the Saturn-Neptune cycle that started in 1989, which was in Capricorn. We're literally in the last final months of this, because when Saturn joins Neptune at 0 degrees Aries in February, that's it. That phase ends, and now we have a new phase. So this phase literally started with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, right when Saturn was conjunct Neptune in Capricorn. Okay, and so very significant event. And what that did was it ended the Cold War effectively. And then now all the corporations and governments, this is Capricorn energy, started to collude with each other. Okay, and they're working with each other. So there's power on top, and there's people down here. There's no more sides anymore. Even though there was always a perception of like political alliances and whatnot, in general, people were working together on the same team in power against the people. What's happening, and what we've seen with that was, just this march toward globalism. essentially, okay? We're getting rid of individual liberty, getting rid of national sovereignty, and trying to get everyone on the same page. Think UN, think World Health Organization, think, what happened in 2020 when Pluto was in Capricorn now, and Saturn returned there and joined Pluto, and that sense of government overreach and abuse of power from the top down that happened at that time. So we're ending this phase now. The next phase has to do with personal responsibility for our ideologies. So understanding why we came here as individuals rather than as part of a tribe. So getting rid of tribalism and replacing that with individuation and cooperation as a result of individuation. So respect for differences, essentially, okay? And that's ideological differences, not superficial differences that they try to push under this previous, power over the people kind of situation. So we're really entering into a time of personal responsibility when it comes to power. But we have to be ready for that. And what's been preparing us for that since 2018 is Chiron and Aries. So Chiron and Aries has really forced us as individuals to look into, what prevents us from being all that we are. What beliefs that we have taken on that have limited ourselves, okay? Because in order to take advantage of that Saturn-Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, to take on the full responsibility of ourselves as an individual, we've really had to heal. We've really had to face those wounds. And that's what we've done. Okay, we've been doing that all this time. And so now, again, we're in this final flush out phase over the next few months. And what's happening during this flush out phase for most of it is we're going to experience this Jupiter in Cancer squaring that Chiron in Aries. Okay, that'll start here in October. It'll kind of in and out October to December, essentially. Okay, and if we think of what we're leaving behind, the old phase, the old container, that's our caterpillar phase. What's coming in February? That is the butterfly phase, okay? And in between, if you're not familiar, there is this goo phase, this chrysalis phase, where the caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar, not quite yet a butterfly, and it's in between, and it's a state of high vulnerability. That's what this Jupiter in Cancer squaring Chiron and Aries has to do with. It's this emotional growth through vulnerability. And because we've been working on this vulnerability, this personal identity vulnerability, going back to 2018, we're really in a place where we're ready to do that. And that's what we're supposed to be focused on coming in the next few months here in this flush out phase, is getting really clear, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable so we can grow, so we can be ready to take on the personal responsibility that's going to be asked of us when it comes to power in the next phase, in this next phase of societal evolution represented by Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, okay? So big deal. What's happening this week, and it won't start till about Wednesday, but Wednesday to Friday time frame, we have Mercury in Libra. It's going to square that Jupiter in Cancer right before it opposes Chiron in Aries. So it's almost like a preview bringing that square together. So bringing this goo phase into our awareness this week, okay? So we might be poked or provoked on a mental level into the things that we really do need to deal with, so we can be ready for that butterfly phase that's coming in February. Okay. In addition to that, we'll have Venus in Virgo on the South Node. So this goes back to this idea of these previous eclipses, which were in the Pisces Virgo axis. Okay. And so this again has to do with getting rid of old, anything we're clinging to in terms of habits. Okay. Getting rid of those old habits, those old ways of containing ourselves, essentially. But that Venus in the South Node kind of almost tempts us into that old way. So something happens this week where it's reminding us where we're going, what we need, the vulnerability we need to face in order to get there. And despite the temptation of wanting to go back to our old ways, facing that and saying, no, it's time to move forward. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, please let me know. Look forward to my monthly update. I do monthly updates too on my YouTube channel. That's Christopher Taylor Sovereign Harmony if you're not on my YouTube here. And you can get my monthly updates. I'll do one for October coming up this week. In the next few weeks, we'll talk more and more about this Jupiter square Chiron. It's the big theme for the fall for sure. If you have any other questions, if you're looking for a personal reading, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy your Sunday, enjoy your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.